the heart of the police dilemma is those neighborhoods that demand our services, need us the most, request us the most, depend upon us the most, for social and historical reasons, distrust us. Right. And when there's a series of critical incidents like we've recently seen, that distrust is in high relief. We can't protect them effectively if we're not trusted, and the police are needed, as you've said, right, in those neighborhoods. And so the challenge is, how do we talk about both things at the same time without acting like we're blaming the African-American community for their victimization, or that we're assuming that all police are racially biased? I understand the Black Lives Matter movement exists because there's a sensibility that black lives didn't matter, all right? And that's for a number of social and historical reasons. It gets to exist and to advance that agenda. Doesn't mean anybody else's life doesn't matter. But for us, the problem's this. All there is the police in the community. There's no cavalry coming. Right. Many of our cities are in states that are dominated by interests that act like the cities are the enemy. Right. State legislators want to help us do something about guns. All right, what was that man doing with an assault rifle? I mean, fine, go to the funeral of the 5 cops, but how did that guy get that assault rifle, and why could he walk down the street with it and then use it? Okay, that requires some political courage. It requires mass movements. There's a lot of moving pieces here. Yeah. So we have to work together. We know that. And everything that divides us makes us all more vulnerable. Makes the police more vulnerable, makes the community more vulnerable. They're the ones that need us the most. And so the challenge, the easy challenge I offer you in the next 6 months, but also I would also hope beyond that, yeah, is to use your authority, your influence, and your prestige as a convener to continue this discussion, because I don't think things are going to get enlightened during this election. Okay? And so that conversation is going to have to take place parallel to this election, yeah, and beyond it, if we're going to make that joint progress, because those neighborhoods depend upon us for their safety, and the police depend upon those neighborhoods for their safety.
Well, I appreciate what you said, Chief. Let me just pick up on a couple of themes that you said. Number one, it is absolutely true that the murder rate in the African-American community is way out of whack compared to the general population, and both the victims and the perpetrators are black, young black men. The single greatest cause of death for young black men between the ages of 18 and 35 is homicide. And that's crazy. That is crazy. And so we have to acknowledge that. And that means that we can't put the burden on the police alone. It is going to require investments in those communities. It is going to require making sure the schools work. It's going to require having after-school programs. And then it is going to require us to look at things like guns. Now, this is tough. I have presided over more memorials of mass shootings than I would like. And it's heartbreaking. But that doesn't even count the hundreds of kids just in the south side of Chicago who've been shot. And part of what makes the police-community interaction so fraught with potential danger is because police officers who have a right to come home so that mom's not worried, they are aware of the fact that there's just a lot of guns washing around there. And they don't know what might happen, which means you're going to be your adrenaline's going to be a little higher, and it's going to be tougher. Now, the truth is that the politics of firearms and having a conversation about this right now is very difficult. In the Lieutenant Governor's home state, you've got open carry laws. It is a testament to the professionalism of the Dallas Police Department that more people did not get shot, because when the snipers started shooting, you had people in the protests who were carrying long rifles. And so they weren't even sure who was doing the shooting. So we do have to make sure that we're thinking about making these communities healthy generally and not see that as separate from police-community relations, and I will do so. Now, the one thing I do, I'll just take a moment to say two other things. Number one, I know that there are some who have criticized even the phrase Black Lives Matter as if the notion is that other lives don't matter. And so you get, you know, all lives matter or blue lives matter. I understand the point they're trying to make. I think it's important for us to also understand that the phrase Black Lives Matter simply refers to the notion that there's a specific vulnerability for African Americans that needs to be addressed. It's not meant to suggest that other lives don't matter. It's to suggest that other folks aren't experiencing this particular vulnerability. And so we shouldn't get too caught up in this notion that somehow people who are asking for fair treatment are somehow automatically anti-police, are trying to only look out for black lives as opposed to others. I think we have to be careful about playing that game just because that's not obviously what is intended. The final point I will make is that if, Chief, you are reaching out to the community ahead of time, doing all the work you're doing, and have built trust, that doesn't guarantee that when something like this happens, there's still not going to be a flare-up, because there's a lot of pent-up frustration in a lot of these communities. And there are times where people are irresponsible in how they try to address it. The one thing I can tell you I hear more often than anything, though, that I think would be helpful on the police side would be initiating investigations that people feel are transparent and certain, and that involves state prosecutors and investigators just treating these things seriously. When an event like this happens, in the same way that I expect any Black Lives Matter person to express sincere sorrow if a police officer is shot, I think it's useful for police departments, when something happens, without in any way compromising an investigation, just expressing real grief and sorrow that there was a loss. Kindness and compassion, particularly coming from the two sides, expressed across this divide, that makes a big difference. Because sometimes people just want acknowledgement. They want to feel as if their concerns are being heard and resonate.
And I got to say, we saw so much of that in Dallas. The protesters who then showed up at those patrol cars that became a moving tribute that grew before our eyes. Mr. President, we have just one final moment before we let everyone go today, and it involves a mother who wanted to be here from Dallas. She brought her boys to that protest, which, as many point out, was peaceful until that moment. And then she was shot. And the only reason she survived with her boys was because of the officers who dove in to help her. And here's that mother, what she told the nation.
I saw another officer get shot right there in front of me again. That was two.
And her sons are here today. And Jamar, I would just ask that you stand up for a moment And if you wouldn't mind, will you just share with the President your plans now, given what's happened these last few days?
I wanted to be a police officer when I get older, and that the reason I want to be a police officer is that I want to try to make this world a better place as much as I can, and that I want to like tell kids and adults that not all police officers are bad. Some police officers make mistakes, and that's just what I want to tell people.
Well, I think you'll make an outstanding police officer. I met your mom and your dad, and they were very proud of you. Now that her leg is laid up, she's expecting help from you around the house.
Yes, sir.
Because my understanding is your dad's still got to work. He drives a tow truck.
Yes, sir.
So he's gone a lot. And you got a lot of brothers. Well, what do you got, 5 in the house? So since police are there to serve and protect, you can start practicing now by serving your mom. But we're very proud of you. I will say this, David. I met this family immediately after I had met with the families of the fallen officers that we were memorializing. And that's always the hardest thing I do as president. Trying to comfort a family who's just lost somebody, and comfort kids who are the same age as you. So you had some white children who had lost their father. You had Latino children who had lost their father. You have African American families who have lost their fathers. And I can tell you the grief is the same. The loss is the same. And when I'm hugging those kids and telling them it's going to be okay, the only way I can deliver on that promise is if we make sure that all of us are looking out for all of those children. We have an obligation to them, each and every one of them. And that is something that I'm committed to, not just as President of the United States, but as a father myself. And I hope that all of us, over the coming weeks and months and years, take that same approach. These are all our kids, and we want an America where they feel safe and loved and cared for. All right?
Jamar, thank you. The police chief says he's hiring. Have to wait a few years.
All right.
Mr. President, thank you. I want to thank everyone watching, both in this country and around the world, and to every family that gathered here in this room tonight. We salute your bravery and your courage to come here and share your stories with the President. And Mr. President, it's an honor, and we thank you. The conversation's just begun here.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.